All right, we're going to try this again. I'm sorry for those I lost in the process. I was actually trying to switch to my better Wi-Fi, and then it started acting funny. So maybe I should have just let it go. Okay, so I'll give everyone a minute to get in here, and hopefully now this will help. So I hope everyone is having a good day. I thought I would pop on because I am in the middle of planning, and I thought it might be helpful to hear from someone and for me to just kind of share out loud, because planning feels overwhelming, I think, to everyone. Planning their homeschool. This is something I really enjoy. So I want to make that clear. I love planning our homeschool. I love teaching. So when you see all of the things that I have purchased, it's because I really love it. So don't feel like you need all these things. I'm just going to show you some of the tools I'm using in case there's something that might work for you. Okay, so first let's talk with how I'm planning this year. So this year on Instagram, my friend Vicky showed that she was reading a book. I have it on Kindle, so I have to bring it up on my iPad for you. She was reading a book called Minimalist Homeschooling. And since right now I'm trying to like minimalist my whole house, I thought, well, that sounds really great. And she was like, this is how I did it last year, and it was really helpful, so I want to do it again. So I was like, great, I'll read along with you. And there's actually now a few of us reading it. And the reason I wrote the name Voxer in there is a bunch of us are talking about it on Voxer. Voxer is an app for voice talking. It's like being able to just chat with friends all day and it leaves the messages. It's amazing. It's my favorite app. I could go on. But we're reading through it together and then sharing our thoughts as we work through it. Oh, by the way, if anyone's making comments, let me scroll down so I can see them. I can't see comments right now. So that's weird. Let me see if I hide that. Okay, here we go. Now I can see the comments. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I've been missing all these. But all of you lovely people saying hello. Yes, Amy, it is the best of times and the worst of times. Okay, so the Minimalist Homeschool, I linked, there's an affiliate link to Amazon up there, but it's really walking through helping me find my most important goals for each of my kids and subjects. And it's really about prioritizing in your homeschool, and there's worksheets to work through. So I was going to read the section I'm in. So there's several chapters. I'm in chapter 3, and this is the quote that stood out to me this morning. It says, minimalist homeschooling means that you do not do everything all at once. You do a select few things and do them the best you can. And because your family will have more free time, your children can independently pursue their own interests, join you as you pursue yours, or discover a completely new interest. And I liked that kind of vision. And then she talks about writing down all the subjects and then being like, yeah, this is why homeschooling is overwhelming. Can you see all that? These are just some, sorry, it doesn't like screen to screen, of the subjects we feel compelled to teach. Oh, wrong way. Was that all of them? It was 15 of them, I think. Yeah, 16 when you go to Latin on the next page. So no wonder it feels overwhelming. So she really walks you through, this is the worksheet I'm working on right now, is prioritizing for each kid 3 major subjects and 3 minor subjects. And that's it. And she makes it a seasonal thing because she recognizes it might change each season. So maybe for the fall, I want to focus on certain things, and then I'm going to change it up in the winter. So maybe English in the fall, we're going to focus on short stories and essays, but then in the winter, I want to hit some novels. I mean, I'm throwing out ideas here. I haven't written them all. And then you can put thoughts and notes for the next season. And I'm trying to work through this for each child. It's not easy. Let me tell you, it's not easy. So it's taking a while. I'm going to try to move because I'm not loving the lighting here. I know. All right, let's see. Now, yeah, I feel like I'm a little more clear here. You can just see all my open cabinets, whatever. Okay, so I'm working through the book. There's a lot of worksheets. Here's one that was really helpful that I thought I'd share with you what I actually did. So you had to write down what were your 5 values for your homeschool. Why are you doing it? What are the values for your homeschool? So you kind of brainstormed a ton, and then these are the 5 that I narrowed down to. What do I really value? These aren't necessarily character traits I value or trying to develop in my kids. Some of their character traits might come as a result of these values, but these are what the Wilson Academy values, the top 5. So they are travel, exploration, and adventure. If you follow my blog at all, then you know I like to go on adventures. Community and relationships. We are a house of a lot of extroverts. So one of our values is not just relationships within the family, but I have to make sure I'm prioritizing time for my kids to build community outside of our home. That's really important to them, and it does take up some of our school time to be able to do that. Oh, sorry, I haven't been looking at the comments. Okay, hi. All right, next value. Personal exploration and individualism. This is another one. I realize when I look over our plans, I don't have a one-size-fits-all kind of homeschool going here. It's very different. It's individual, and I really value that. You know, I have a kid who wants to be a teacher, and she's now been working. We're looking at a church internship for her. She's going to contact elementary schools. It's going to impact the books I assign her. So that's the kind of thing I mean. I value creating individual opportunities. The next one, global awareness. Global mindedness, global awareness, global citizenship. You know, there's lots of ways to word that. But for me, one of the other things that influences our geography studies, CNN 10, current events, is I want my kids to be aware that they are part of a bigger world outside of themselves. And hopefully that will develop. It was interesting as I went through this process because I was like, oh, you know, I really want that to develop compassion. And then I stopped back. I don't want to value compassion over some other character trait that global awareness might develop. And that's when I stopped putting character traits here. Because global awareness might develop compassion in all my kids, or maybe really strongly in one. Where in another one, it might develop an interest in politics. And another one, it might develop an interest in nonprofit work, which all of those can also be compassionate. But anyway, do you get my point? Like, these are the values, and then they're going to play themselves out differently in all my kids. But I really want to instill in them a sense of global awareness. So that was one. And then the ladies I was working with, we decided that the brave writer lifestyle can be a value. I wrote that down. I'm like, can that be a value? I think it can. And what I mean by that when I say it is a liberal arts education and relational education. To me, that is a value in my homeschool. So these are what I'm keeping in mind as I decide what we're going to do this year. As I'm, you know, you get tempted, you see that over there in this class and that opportunity. And I want to say, does this fit with our values? And do I still have time for some of the other values if I do this? So that was really helpful. I actually think I might write that up somewhere. And like I said, there's worksheets for every section. So right now I'm going through the prioritizing subjects. And then for each subject, she walks you through creating goals, specific goals for your kids. And then I printed out ahead so I can show you that at some point, you're going to start looking at how you spend your time and making the time for things that you need to make the time for. And here is planning your school week and kind of looking at how it will lay out. And then there's some ways. This was interesting. My friend Vicki, who has done this before, said this was really helpful. You plan for an intentional break each day. And then you brainstorm, how would you spend 15-minute breaks? How would you spend breaks of an hour? And how would you spend an entire day of relaxation? And she said she had her kids write it down too. And it was really helpful because when she looked at the clock, it was like, we have an hour. She could look at her list. Well, what will we do with an hour? Here's some of the things I listed I'd love to do in an hour. So let's do one of them. So I'm really looking forward to this. And that is kind of how I'm starting my planning. But I don't think linearly. I never have thought in a complete linear fashion. I have always kind of thought all over the place. So you're getting a little insight into my crazy mind. So one of the things I started to think about was language arts. And I have some notes. Where did I put them? Okay. I started thinking about language arts, and here's why. My middle daughter's book club fell apart last week. Of the 6 girls, only, or maybe 7, 2 were returning. So I had to step back and decide what to do. And that had actually happened to my older daughter. Actually, though, a year later. It happened at the end of 8th grade. And I had to really kind of find people for her to have in a book club this year. So it gave me a moment. It gave me pause. My girls have had amazing book clubs centered around Brave Writer books for 3 years. It has been awesome. But maybe it's time for a new adventure for them. Maybe there's something else we should do with literature for a year or 2 and then come back to a book club. Maybe we should discuss something else once a quarter with people and do something with literature at home. So that's kind of what got me thinking, is when suddenly the book clubs fell apart. And I thought, you know what, before I just start scrounging for more new book clubs, let's step back. So, yeah, Krista, it was really hard when it happened. But I decided, you know what, let's see this as an opportunity. My boys will still have their Arrow book club. All the boys in there are excited. It's 3rd through 6th grade. No, next year it's 4th through 7th grade. It's going really well. They love it. The girls have had 3 great years of it. It's time to rethink. So at the same time, I was going through all my homeschool materials, doing this minimalist, let's get rid of everything I'm not doing. And I owned these 3 books. They're all by the same woman, Dina Lushsinger. Okay. They are Out of the Holding Tank, a balanced program of language arts for homeschooling middle school students, Grading with a Purple Crayon. This is high school composition, and The Reader's Odyssey. And I had them laying out on my table. This is for middle and high school students, individualized literature. And I was like, I've had these for like a year and a half. Apparently, I either just need to read them or get rid of them. So I decided to read them. And I love them. Like, I love them. I cannot believe I did not read them a year ago, but I will have to trust that this was the right timing to read them, because book clubs were falling apart, and this has sparked a new journey for me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit. There's actually 2 that I love. The third one's okay. The first one, this is The Reader's Odyssey. And table of contents is always kind of helpful to see. So you could probably see on Amazon, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. This kind of sums up. This is what grabbed me. Now you have to understand, Brave Writer lifestyle is one of our values. These books fit right in with it. So it's a program that forces students to read and report on reading in order to earn a grade, but fails to instill students the innate desire to look to books to get information they need, to provide a pleasurable pastime, or to enrich their lives with challenging questions and perspectives, ultimately has accomplished very little. And I was like, oh yeah, that's striking a chord with me. The real end of any course of education is to develop in students a propensity to continue to learn and grow, even after no one makes them do so. I loved that. So these kind of sum up the book so you know what you would be getting into. It's all about students having more control, which is a beautiful thing. We can give our kids autonomy in our homeschool journey. So getting students to choose growth is a matter of trust. It's no good pretending to offer freedom when in fact you retain control. Instead, you arrange the conditions that allow students to have maximum freedom, just like you arrange your home for toddlers to explore safely. And you organize work that includes a few minimum requirements to ensure growth. So right away, I was like, okay, I'm in. You've got me. I'd like to know what you have to say about this. So I'm going to show you a few things that were really eye-opening for me. She talks about designing a program for your kids. And there is so much in here, I can't possibly summarize it for you all. On page 38, she kind of lays out this idea of a 4-year program for freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And I actually loved that reading this book and reading this one, which also addresses middle school, affirmed for me what we've been doing with Brave Writer. I feel like my kids have had a wonderful exposure to classics, to modern classics, to graphic novels, to free verse poetry, novels, to modern fiction, to nonfiction. Like, we have hit the genres, and I felt really good about that because she was emphasizing that for middle school and even for freshman and sophomore years, to focus on breadth, entice your students to expand their tastes and information. She does not feel like freshman and sophomore year should be a ton of literary analysis and digging in deep. It should be more like short responses and summaries and things like that. And then junior and senior year, they begin to dig deeper and the breadth becomes narrower. And that really kind of opened up my eyes, because with a daughter going into the field of education, I started thinking, well, why not her senior year really draw from that field for her literature in English? I remember having a college professor who for some reason picked all these education-focused books for English 112. And I felt really fortunate, but I thought, oh my gosh, these poor kids in here. Heather, I'm talking about this one right now. These poor kids in here who aren't going into education. We were reading a nonfiction story of a teacher in like a downtown Chicago school system and things like that. And I thought, I could do that for her. I could pull books focused in. So that's what I was really feeling like. It just started inspiring me. And it was reinforcing and affirming what we were already doing. On page 71, I mean, there's so much in here. This talked a little bit about each of the stages and what outcomes you might want. So knowledge about how literature works for freshman and sophomore. You're reading and classifying a lot of things. Maybe you do checklists and book summaries. And then this is what the teacher does. The teacher acquires literature, directs students to resource materials like background information, and oversees the checklists and the reading logs. And then by senior year, this is what was interesting to me. So sophomore to junior year, you're doing summaries, book reviews, short answers to guided questions. And then by senior years, when you're doing deductive and inductive literary analysis and reflection, junior and senior year. So it's just this nice progression where I could look at my kids and be like, where are we? And where do we need to go? And we've done it a lot. I mean, again, we use the Brave Writer Arrow and Boomerang guides, and just having all that oral discussion over the last several years has really laid a beautiful foundation. And I'm seeing that now as I'm reading this. What else was I going to show you in here? Oh, and then the resources. Oh my gosh, in the back here, she has categorized classics by difficulty and length. So, for example, here's level 1, classics. So, Wuthering Heights, Secret of the Andes, The Black Stallion, Lord of the Flies. I didn't realize that was level 1. The Outsiders, apparently Wrinkle in Time. Even Winnie the Pooh is in here. So, it was really interesting. And then all the way up to level 12, so you can see where she goes, we haven't touched any of the ones in level 12. Don Quixote, The Canterbury Tales, Divine Comedy, Origin of Species. It gets pretty intense. But again, I started flipping through this and I was like, wow, my oldest has really hit a lot of these levels. So that was really interesting. Yes, I can show the cover again. And all of this is linked. It's all Amazon affiliate links, but it's all linked in the video description. So this is one of the first ones. This is The Reader's Odyssey. I really liked this one. It has inspired me to take a journey that I'm really enjoying. Right on the back of that one is this one, Out of the Holding Tank. Wow, I don't even know where to start with this one too. It's doing the same thing, but with middle and high school. It's the biggest takeaway I'm taking is to come up with requirements that do not necessarily include the titles. Like, I think one of her checklists said like 2 classics, 2 modern classics that's written 40 years ago, a work of modern fiction, 4 short stories or themes you wanted to do. Anyway, just kind of laying out, what do I want my kids' year to look like? And then letting them pick, letting them have some options on what they're reading. So let's see. This one also, it was awesome because it was right up my little Brave Writer alley. Is chapter 2 talked all about dictation. And it was actually really inspiring for me. She walked through really how to do dictation, how to teach grammar through copy work and dictation. I've been doing that for years, but reading the way someone else does it. And that's this one. Reading the way someone else does it, where she just spells for them the words that might be particularly difficult, and then goes through each passage with identify the verb, identify the subject, identify the direct object. And we've done some of that here and there, but with my older daughter, 8th grade, I liked what was described in here, that I'd like to get a little more formal with her and focus in. So that was really helpful in here. In chapter 2 was dictation and grammar. And it really just, again, went along with our Brave Writer lifestyle anyway. So it was easy for me to just grab some new goals to implement. She had goals. And again, I felt really good about this. Like the primary goal in 6th grade is to build fluency by reading a lot of books. In 7th grade, expand their tastes and interests by going to diverse genres. And then in 8th grade, begin to prepare for more complexity with literary classics. And I thought this, again, we've been doing that with Brave Writer. We've actually expanded very early on, but it just gave me kind of a timeline to look at where my kids were. 49, general requirements. Let me see if this shows you guys. Okay, like you could say, read from at least 5 distinct genres, including 1 nonfiction. Read or listen to 2 classic works. Read 2 modern classics. Find 2 poems you like well enough to memorize and recite, and keep a reading log of every book you read. That was an idea of what she did for requirements. And then within those requirements, the kids could build their own plan. So they might find a short story that addresses something. They might find, they have to read classic works, but they might find when you have to read from 5 distinct genres, well, a short story could be one of the genres for you. So it just allowed a lot of freedom, and I was really liking that. Then it does go into writing. I feel pretty confident in where we are in writing, but there is a lot of information in here on writing. And is there anything else I was going to show you guys in this one? I mean, there's just so much. I don't even know where to start. There's so much back here on grammar and just where to start with grammar. Simple transitive sentences. And there's little lessons to go through. I mean, there's so much in this book that I'm pulling from. Linking verbs and their complements. Lessons, participle phrases, infinitive phrases, so much stuff. And then it says 129. Let me see what that is. Oh, I know what this is. Okay. And then she had in here a literary questionnaire, literary preference questionnaire. I did this with my 2 oldest daughters right now. As you can tell, that's really where I'm focusing. And I have their questionnaires here. Okay. So it asked them, there were 2 in here that I printed both of them. My kids could not be more different. Okay, can I just say that? My 2 daughters could not be more different. All right. So on the student survey, you have all these genres, and you circle your top 3 and cross out 3 or 4 of them you can't stand. So like she crossed out manga, anthropomorphic fantasy, and history and biography. Doesn't like that stuff at all. She likes science fiction, survival, and coming-of-age stories. My other daughter wanted comic books, graphic novels, and epic fantasy. And she also crossed out nonfiction, history, and biography, realistic pet stories. And she didn't particularly care for historical fiction. So what that did is it said to me, okay, if I want to address biographies, let's do those as our read-alouds. Why force them to have to read a biography? Maybe I can find a really fun short story memoir that they could read. But I could read, so I actually am getting for our vacation across out west, I'm going to get Born a Crime. And we're going to listen to it on audiobook. So it helped me just think like I can address the things they really hate through audiobooks and through other ways, read-alouds. And they can be exploring types of literature they really like, with some requirements to diversify a little. This also had them write the top 4 books they've read over the past 2 years. So that really gave me some insight into what are they enjoying. It asked them, would their favorite books usually make them laugh or make them cry? When they read new words, does it make them slow down? Do they never notice? How does that work? Do they prefer boys or girls as the protagonists? Do they prefer stories that take place in familiar, foreign, or exotic, or unrealistic settings? How often would they read books with lots of pictures if it were up to you? Do they prefer stories where dogs act like dogs or stories where dogs can talk like people? And if a title sounded good but the book was really long, would they still read it? These were so insightful. I actually just did it as an interview with my daughter. I just asked her the questions and then she answered. I have one daughter who loves comic books, wants everything to have pictures, loves fantasy worlds, and doesn't want to read anything long. And I have another daughter who could care less where the setting is, doesn't care about pictures, doesn't care if a book is long. She says, sure, I'll read it. Why not? It was fascinating. So these were really helpful, and these were in the Out of the Holding Tank book, this one. So it's just another tool that I'm really getting to know my kids better and plan something more for them. And this one actually has book categories in the back by, like you could look up girls coming of age, and it has a bunch of titles leveled from easiest to hardest. So like in the hardest, it might be Jane Eyre, Northanger Abbey, and Little Women. In the easiest, it might be Heidi, Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. So you can look up adventure stories. You can look up coming of age with boys, people who are funny about their pets, people fighting beasts to survive, fairy tale fantasy, science fiction, epic, all these categories, and then titles so that you can help your kid choose things that are going to appeal to them. And then in the back, and again, this was very Brave Writer-esque, there's all these types of writing projects. Now, I feel like we've done a lot of this through partnership writing, filtering ownership, and Jot It Down. But there were a few in here that were new to me that I thought, oh, this is really great. Oh, yeah, Heather, I didn't have a digital version either. I know, but I'm a paper girl anyway. So to write a book of quotation, a top 10 list, a bucket list, a congratulations note, a letter of complaint, a fan letter, an advice column. I mean, I liked that. Like, come up with something for them to give advice. So this one addresses reading and writing in middle and high school. So I really liked this too. The last one that's writing for high school is the one I have liked the least. It's been the least inspiring for me, but just so you know, she does have a third book. You can see where I am. I'm only partway through this one. So I can't say a ton about it. This is about high school composition. I guess, again, I own Help for High School from Brave Writer, so I feel pretty set in understanding high school composition, but this does have some cool ideas that I might pull from, but this one of the three, I have the least amount to say about it, A, because I'm not done reading it. I do like how she talks about how to write a summary, like a good book summary, and we might walk through some of that. And she's got some cool graphic organizers in here. I'm a former teacher, so I like graphic organizers. But I'm reading Peter Elbow's Writing with Power right now, and I'm getting a lot more out of that in terms of teaching writing than I am necessarily on this one. But it is out there. I don't think I needed this one. This one has not been as inspiring, though I will keep reading it. So if there's any questions about minimalist homeschooling or those three books, this is a good time to ask because I'm putting those aside now. Oh, I was going to say what it did inspire me, and I'm going to show you this stack as I'm going through, is my one daughter who wants everything to have pictures, doesn't like long books, really struggles reading. There was a great section, I think in this book. Let me see if I wrote down what covered types of readers, page 83. So in this book, there was a types of readers, and it was, I'm not even going to know how to say these, Dionysian writers, audio sequential learners, visual spatial learners, Apollonian readers. Anyway, none of them struck me. I mean, there's so many Promethean writers, Epimethean readers and writers, but the visual spatial. I've got a girl who's all visual spatial. They remember the pictures they see of the words better than most people. They avoid editing exercises and all those things because with misplaced words. Don't do all that because they will remember the picture of the misspelled word, is what she was saying. So the dictation and copy work we do is the most effective. So that reinforced me, that one. But she talked about attempting projects and reading that combine the graphic and the writing. So it inspired me that my daughter and I are going to have her focus on graphic novels this year. I said to my husband last night, I'm like, let's be honest. If Trisha writes a book one day, which I can see any of my kids writing a book, they all love to write at this point. They all participate in NaNoWriMo. I mean, you know, my 8-year-old, as much as he could. But let's be honest, if Trisha ever writes a book, it will be a graphic novel. Like, it will. She's an artist. She creates comics and graphics up in her room all night. So why not spend a year exploring the art and literature of graphic novels? So I have requested about 30 graphic novels to preview from the library. I was just going to show you some. I don't know anything about them. I don't even know where I got some of these titles that I picked up. This one has very few words. And to give her things to respond briefly in writing when she does the book, like to talk about the pictures and how they helped tell the story, maybe find a favorite sequence, you know, that kind of stuff that she can start to explore literature in a way that she loves. This one was already on the Brave Writer Boomerang list. So to look at, I said to her, what about reading nonfiction if it was through a graphic novel? And she was like, yeah, I'd do that. So this is book 1 of March. I found this one, Lumberjanes. No idea what this is. So I'm going to be looking through that. Creepy books. Why not look at horror and creepy books? You know, how does that work in graphic novel? Keep in mind, my daughter's about to turn 14. So a lot of people were asking, oh, I want to see your, oh, Amy, I love that. I just saw that. Keep a reading journal in graphic novel form. I'm totally going to have to think about how that will work. Well, she'll think about how it will work. I'll throw it out to her. A lot of people were like, oh, we want to see your list when you come up with it. I'm just going to have to put a clarifying thing on there that she's almost 14. So there will be language probably in some of her books. This one came up, but it wasn't a graphic novel. It's actually written, it is a story, but it's different. So I'm actually thinking, well, you know, maybe I look for some books more like this to still find some chapter books, more traditional written chapter books that will help her not feel so intimidated. Oh, good. Krista, these are all new to me. And here I have this kid who absorbs graphic novels, and I just really have not done a great job digging into that genre. So for me, as I was thinking through my minimalist homeschooling, like, what if she spent a year and read nothing but graphic novels? Worst case scenario. What if that's all she read in 8th grade? And I'm thinking that would be okay. I'm thinking she'd survive that. I'm thinking she actually might love that year of her life more than any other year in English. And I'm okay. So I've already started planning. Well, how can I hit some of these other genres? So on our way home from our trip out west, we're going to listen to Anna Green Gables. Oh yeah, Charity, we own most of the Nathan Hales. I know there's another one coming. We'll be pre-ordering that. Oh, you also have a visual space. Yeah, so that must be why you've read some of these. So I'm thinking we'll listen to Anna Green Gables on audio on the way home because we get home August 27th. So school will have started, will be about to start. And then she and I can spend her first month, you know, watching the Anna Green Gables movie and then comparing it to the Netflix Anne with an E and dive into a classic, but using audio, then using visual through Netflix. So anyway, I feel like I'm sad about the collapse of the book clubs, but maybe that was the good timing for us right now. And maybe we'll find a way to come back into group discussion. It just might look different than it did before. And that's what I said to the friends who are still willing and want to do it is let's kick back a little and then dive in and it might look different. Maybe instead she finds some other visual spatial learners who want to do the book, some of these graphic novels with her and some activities with that. What do I do if they fall asleep? As long as I'm not driving, I probably fall asleep half the time. Since it's her story, I mean, if the other kids fall asleep, I'm not going to worry about it too much. The boys, they can read Anne of Green Gables later, just watch a show with us. But if she starts to drift off, I'd probably just stop the story if we're driving along, because this would be part of a school assignment. I was just trying to think of a way. She loves audiobooks. She will, if I order them through Amazon, she'll go up in her room and use her dot, and she'll sit there and draw and listen to audiobooks. So, and I was really happy to see on that survey, even though she says she only likes graphic, The Thing About Jellyfish was one of her favorite books in the past 2 years. And it's a chapter book, and she had to read it. We did not have, we might have had that on audio. And Game Night 999, Minecraft. So it's also about the topic. But yeah, she loves audio. But again, I'd probably stop the book if I noticed her fall asleep, or have her catch up actually reading the book to what she missed. But on a general day, I guess it would depend on my purpose for reading. If it was just for pleasure, like when we're driving out west and we listen to some other stuff that maybe I'll get for pleasure, like I was getting the Penderwicks because they've never read that. I don't care if they fall asleep. That'd be okay with me. I have the kids who listened fill them in on what they missed. Yes, we have loved, and I've loved that Brave Writer has always had a graphic novel at least every other year. We did American Born Chinese through the Brave Writer Boomerang, and we did another one, Mirka, how Mirka got her sword. I think that's what it was. So yeah, I'm really excited. So what are some other stuff? Oh, my, okay, I think I've covered all that. My boys will still be doing their Arrow book club. We are very happy with the Arrow. We are very happy with the book club, with the Arrow guides. Very little is changing for my boys who are in 4th and 6th grade. So I feel like everything we've done with Brave Writer has built a beautiful foundation for my girls, and they are in a great place. So I'm not really changing much for my boys, which is why you don't hear me talking about what I'm doing for the boys. It's going to look kind of the way they've always done things, because I love it. Okay, a bunch of other products that I love and that I'm using. Excuse me, I'm like in the camera while I'm trying to grab these. I was set up to sit somewhere else, but that I want to tell you about. And again, I'm a little bit of a resource junkie. So this one I've had now and I've used for a year and a half. I love it. This is, and it's listed here in the comments. Oh, Encourageable Children. That's another really good audio. Oh, it made my entire family happy. Okay, we'll have to discuss audiobooks at the end here. Oh, you guys are giving me some really good stuff. You all discuss. You discuss your favorite audiobooks over there in the comments, and I'll read them later and get some ideas. But if you have an audiobook that your whole family has loved, drop it in the comments right now, because that would be a great list for all of us. This is from Rooted in Language with Rita. And I have linked to her website up there. And then under that link, I put the things that I either own or have purchased, like everything I own, 2 of which, though, I just purchased. So this one, though, I've been using for a while. I love annotating literary elements. I love that it works for all the ages. We did so much with the plot arc and how to teach my kids to work through a plot arc. And then she has different point of view. I mean, there's so much in this. And how to teach each of those elements. And then she goes through, and I'm just going to get to the table of contents. Marking the musical elements in books and literature. So structure and rhythm and alliteration and assonance and all of that kind of stuff. Figurative language, comparisons, symbolism, motif, allusion, imagery, like everything you need is in here, K through 12. And it's awesome. And the great thing is she has a free guide that goes through a bunch of her products and kind of how to use and start them. This is one of them. There is another guide called Trees in the Forest. I just purchased that. And the character one, Explore a Story. I printed the table of contents for you guys, so let me go grab it. I forgot to right before we started. Okay. I have not read Trees in the Forest. I got that as one of my tools this summer. This is the table of contents. It is how to help your kids see the trees in the forest of books. So in the first tree, you learn how to have conversations with the text. Then synergy, finding the real story, connecting with the characters, discovering the writer, the imagery, a feeling of place, and laying a path. That's with intentional copy work. So this to me just looked like it would be another really great resource. So I grabbed this the other day. So I haven't even printed it for myself. I might just have to read it digitally because you can download it and then either print it or read it. But this is a great tool. And you'll also notice I linked to a Facebook group called, let me see what it's called, Teaching Language Arts. Language Arts Book Club for Moms, I think it is. Teaching Language Arts for Moms. There's a link to the Facebook group. My friend Chantel kind of moderates that, is in charge of that group. And this was the first book they did. So if you go in the history of that group and search Trees in the Forest, you can see what people had to say as they were discussing Trees in the Forest. The great thing about that group too is that Rita, who wrote the book, is a member of that group. So she answers questions, offers suggestions. It's awesome. That, since we're on that group, so I told you about literary elements, and then I bought another thing called Explore a Story Graphic Characters, and it's about analyzing a character and actually drawing a picture to represent the character in the book, like putting them in the setting and adding things. It looked really cool, and since we were talking about visual spatial learners, you might look that up. There's a link to Rita's website up there. And then what you want to look for is the Explore a Story graphic character. And it's in the free lesson plan also, how to incorporate using that. So I'm actually looking forward to that. And she has podcasts. There is so much stuff on her site that I'm just beginning to really explore. I highly suggest going over there and poking around. And then if you're interested in discussing some of this stuff in a group where Rita actually is, you can join that Facebook group that Chantel is running. This month, they are reading this book and discussing it chapter by chapter. Heather Hitchcock, who is over here leaving comments, is in there, and she is one of my favorite and most wisest people that I know when it comes to teaching boys who are in high school. And she posted this book and said that if you have boys, you should read it, that it was a must read. And if Heather says it's a must read, I grab it. So I have not started it. I'm going away next week and it's in my vacation bag. And then I will go on the Facebook group and I'll catch up on the discussion. But this is the book they're discussing right now. And next month they're going to discuss this. The same author wrote this little thing. So that's a nice short one for July. So again, hop in that Facebook group. You can join the discussion for these if you would like. They both look great, and I've heard very good things about this author, Ralph Fletcher. So you might just poke around and see what he has. So I don't know, Heather, if you have anything else to say about that group, feel free to say it. Oh, good. We're going to do Meet the Penderwick. So I feel like I'm all over, but that's how I plan. I'm like all over. And then I narrow down. So you're just getting a glimpse into my all overness. Okay, so we talked about Rita stuff. We talked about the Facebook group. This is another, I always mention this book. I really love this one, and this has everything. It's a resource I'll use forever. Because I mentioned having my kids read memoirs, this has short story memoirs in it because it's about teaching with short texts, and there's a whole section on poetry and memoirs. So it's a great resource. I've talked about this one ad nauseum on Facebook Live. So I'm not going to go on and on. I love this resource. I can look up memoirs, which, you know what, I'll go ahead and show you the process. And then those of you who this is new to, I'll look up memoirs. You have short stories, essays, memoirs, poetry, and children's literature. And I didn't even remember. There's a whole section on graphic novels in here. Oh, man, I'm going to dig into that section this year too. Okay, 116. So she talks all about the memoir and how to teach it, and then she gives you different titles. So here are memoirs focused on childhood, and you can look up these short story memoirs. And then memoirs that emphasize family, memoirs about reading, memoirs about writing, which I thought that'd be really great if we do a writing focused month, which we're thinking of doing, to read a memoir about writing. Memoirs about passion and vocation. Memoirs that just have really great leads. Memoirs with figurative language. Anyway, like I said, I could go on about this book. I love it as a resource. And apparently there's a whole section back here on graphic novels. And I feel like I should hit myself in the head for not knowing that before, but it's all about how to talk about graphic novels. Wow. So I'm really excited about this. And of course, there's concerns about graphic novels, but it's how to talk about in support of the plot and the setting and the theme, and the dialogue and metaphor and satire. It doesn't necessarily have a list of graphic novels, but that's going to be another great resource. Okay. And then one of the last things, yes.
Can I invite Kayla over to watch Action?
Oh, yeah, of course. Just tell her to walk in there. The door's unlocked. This is a little gem that I found at Barnes & Noble. It was only $8.98 at Barnes & Noble. I think when I did the Amazon link up there, I think it was $9.99 on Amazon. So might save you $1 for driving. You know, if you want to drive to Barnes & Noble, I always love an excuse to go there anyway. So it was in the bargain books. It's called Creative Writer's Notebook. I'm already loving it. It goes through different great authors. So like here's Virginia Woolf. Tells you a little bit about her. Goes through 20 great authors. And then it goes through writing exercises with each one. So I am going to give you one of the ones. This is the one I really loved from Virginia Woolf. Point of view. It's important to write effectively from different viewpoints. In Orlando, Virginia Woolf writes from both the male and female perspective with the same within the same character. So here's the exercise for your creative writing notebook. A man is sitting at a table on his own in a crowded Italian restaurant. A woman from another table gets up, walks over to his table, and sits down opposite him. Write 3 versions of the same scene from 3 different perspectives. So the first one is write the scene in first person from perspective of the man or the woman. You know, and she has a little example to get you started. I can see her looking at me in the reflection of the glass. Then write the scene in third person, as if like you're sitting at another table, and refer to them as he and she. And then write it as dialogue. Just write the dialogue between them to carry the story. So I just really loved some of the ideas in here. And they're based on getting to know some of these authors. So it's not something you have to do in order. In fact, you could look up authors that you were doing this year and then pull some of the ideas. And of course, apparently, Virginia Woolf used free writing. Again, everything reinforces our Brave Writer lifestyle. But so one of the creative writing assignments for Virginia Woolf is to try her method of free writing on any subject you like and just free write. Well, we did that all the time. So we'll probably skip this, but just one of those moments you're like, that Julie Bogart, she really knows what she's talking about, doesn't she? By the way, she is the owner and creator of Brave Writer, for those of you that don't know. She is the reason my kids are so wonderfully prepared in literature. Here are the writers, if you're interested, in case any of these you're like, oh, we're doing that person this year. Can you see the other page? Sorry. So I just thought that was really interesting. So that's another little gem that I'm pulling from. I think, yeah, because what we're thinking of doing, since I'm doing that minimalist homeschooling, is I'm going to talk to the girls. If they want to do NaNoWriMo in November, then we are going to drop pretty much everything we can drop except for NaNoWriMo and spend the whole month doing, like I would plan like a little writer's workshop activity to do each day. Maybe we would plan getting together with some friends to share writing on Fridays, and just make that whole month revolve around writing. My daughter took passion for fiction through Brave Writer, and there were so many great activities in that. We might pull out some of those again and keep playing with them. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Hello, Kathleen, Linda. That I was thinking this I would pull from for that. Or I might do writing workshop Wednesday because I like alliteration and we can pull some activities. But one of my goals is to get them writing more. So my high schooler's done a decent amount, but to just kind of beef it up for my 8th and 6th grader. Okay, last thing. And this is, again, just because I collect a lot of stuff, and when I see y'all talking on Facebook and people are suggesting things, like Heather suggested The Boys Writer. Oh, there's Chantel. So if you have questions about her Facebook group that is linked to in the description up here, this is the book they're finishing. Chantel, I feel like you were on chapter 15, and there are 18 in here, that the last one's a personal note. So there's probably 17 really of discussion. But if you join the group, you can go back and look at the discussion on the other chapters and join in with 15 this week. I'm not sure if you could really jump to that chapter, or if it's the kind of thing, I don't know. Chantel, is it the kind of thing you could jump to the chapter where you guys are? Yeah, make sure you answer Chantel's questions when you request to join. But is it the kind of thing they could jump to 15 and start in there? Here you go, guys. People were asking a little more about this. I want to jump right away to the handwriting page. So that's where I want to go. All right, so if you join that, Chantel's asking, there's questions to join. Okay, she says read in order. So that one you just might not be able to discuss with the group unless you're a really fast reader this weekend. But you could join in, again, for Poetry Matters, which is a really great choice for July because it's just so nice and short. So it makes it a little easier while you're doing so many other things to talk about poetry in July. So go ahead and join her and go buy this one, grab it from the library. This one's from the library. And then I may end up buying it if I need it. I had to buy Boy Writers. They didn't have it at my library. Darn library. Okay, the last things. Okay, and Heather's saying she goes back and comments on the older chapters. So just join in and comment where you are. I want to do a little more formal grammar. I want to make sure my boys have memorized all the basic definitions so that they know noun, verb, adjective, adverb. I really feel like just memorize those definitions. We'll start practicing pronouns. First language lessons was really good for that. I grabbed this the other day because I was in some discussion and somebody said this was so awesome. And, you know, I'm a bit of a junkie. I do the same thing you all sometimes say to me, like, stop telling me things, I keep buying them. I do the same thing. I'm in somebody else's group and they're telling me things and I buy them. But it was exactly what I wanted for my boys, just to make sure they knew all the basic parts of speech. There they are. We have done all these, but just to kind of kick off the year, reinforcing them. And the way she does it is just a very simple, we can read it, we can discuss it, and then I'm sure I can find fun ways to enforce it. Like, even if we just did one a week or something for a while. I would not be doing this with my older girls at that time, and that's my minimalist homeschooling. They would be focusing on something else. And then she goes into some other sets of rules. Capitalization, collective nouns, and sequence of adjectives. I may pull in, I know, you bought the same one. Linda, maybe we were in the same conversation. I have so many resources. Okay. So I thought, well, this might give me some things. Like, I don't think I've ever gone over the sequence of adjectives, just to kind of, I mean, most kids know this just from speaking, but to explain that there is actually a rule that we're all following when we're speaking, whether we knew it was a rule or not. Punctuations in here and commas, and then it was fun because she goes into all these literary devices, many of which, because again, of Brave Writer, we've already done, but there were a few in there, like juxtaposition. I thought, oh, that's a good one. And to really explore irony a little more. So it was just giving me some ideas. This is the book. Yeah, it's really cute. It's not something I'll like sit and read out loud to them, but it's kind of like morning basket book, you know, to read what you're going to talk about. Oh, this is interesting because she had this in here. Anthropomorphism. Okay, because in that literary survey, excuse me, let me turn that off. It's my mother, so we might hear her talking to the answer machine. Oh, we do. Oh, it's Mom. Let's see if we can cover her. Okay. I'm making her as quiet as possible, but she wants to talk about the chess tournament for vacation next week. But my daughters, when they were taking that literary survey, they asked if they liked books with anthropomorphism, and they were like, what is that? So I was like, oh, good. This is addressing some things we haven't gone over, and maybe it will give me a way to do that. Okay, be quiet, phone. You know, you do live, but you just cannot plan for everything, right? It's the danger with live. But it's when animals, objects, and other non-human things are described as doing something human. But it is different than, I think it's different in some way from personification. And that would be interesting to explore. Anyway, you see, I'm already doing it. So these kind of things inspire lessons to me. And I grabbed this one. Linda, I'm wondering if you did this one too. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I saw that they have one on money. They have a bunch of them. And Donna, I started with that, so I can come back to that at the end, the minimalist homeschooling. Okay, I grabbed this one too. Did you grab this, Linda? Were we in the same conversation? That's what I'm wondering now. This is another grammar book. I know, so much. But this goes over all different things. You know? So I really liked some of the confusing words. I haven't done a lot of that with my kids, and honestly, this one throws me all the time. Which or that? And sometimes who? I don't know, but I can tell you that I send my party school guides to my mother to edit, and then I send them off to the editor. And her and I sometimes will get into discussions of, I don't know which one it is there. I don't know. So I feel like maybe I bought this one for me. So which one are you adding, Chantel? The dragon one? So I thought this is a kind of a way, after I've done all the basics with the boys, then maybe in the next season, I'll pull in some stuff that the girls could use too. And I would like to find a book. Which title? I'll just hold them both up. This is the one I just did, and this is the one before that. The Dragon Grammar Book. It's cute. I mean, it goes through examples with the dragon, so everything's about the dragon. So as you're learning about, let's just go to one of the mixed up, confusing words. Let's go to affect and effect, because I actually get this one. It tells you, like, how much a knight studies his grammar will affect his knight grades. What effect did hiring a dragon chef have on the kitchen staff? So it's just all kind of dragon related. So it's goofy. It'll make it kind of fun, I think. And they do have in the back little skills tests, which I probably would type them up bigger because I don't like how tiny, but it's not too bad. But just gives you some ideas, like, to make sure your kids kind of get it if they want to try that. So you could print that out. So that was in the back too. Oh, the no nonsense. Yeah, it kind of looks cool. And if I like it, I might get some of the other ones and just kind of see. I think I've shown you guys everything. That's me planning all over the place right now. I'm hoping I'm not the only one. And I think that's it. Oh, a vampire theme. I have to look that up. And I probably should just go and check out the ones at the library too that I might add to it. But once I figure out what I'm doing each week, then I can start pulling stuff in the library too. I do that kind of thing. Donna, I said I would get back to your minimalist homeschooling. It is a book I bought on Amazon. I bought the Kindle version, so it's on my Kindle. And it's just guiding me through planning. And a friend of mine, Vicki, did it and said that they had their best year ever after doing it, and just really focusing in on what needed to get done each day, and that it was just a really helpful process. So I shared some of the stuff I've done at the beginning, but there's like worksheets that you can print out that I'm working through right now with a friend. Well, with 4 of us on Voxer. Oh, that's a great idea for editing. Oh, I'm so glad other people are all over the place with their planning. I don't think I missed anyone else. So feel free to plug in your question again if I missed it. I'm going to hop off in a minute or two, but if there's anything I missed, just let me know. Because that was it. I think that was enough. I think that was enough to go plan some English and plan some other subjects. I'm like, there is more than English. But English always feels like the most overwhelming one to plan because science is sitting here. I don't have to plan it. There's science. I just had to pick the one we were doing this year because I decided not to off-road science. Some years I totally off-road science and we're kind of all over the place having a blast there. This year I said, you know what? Minimalist homeschool. I'm going to just buy a curriculum I like and I'm going to follow it. Exactly. So English is the one I'm all over the place. All right, you're welcome all. If you have any questions or you're watching the replay, just leave them in the comments. I do get a Facebook notification when anyone leaves it, and I'll try to, yes. Something I didn't mention, and maybe you all have resources, is that I remember the Dragon Grammar was $1.99, Kindle. I remember middle school having to do ad campaigns and learning propaganda techniques. Do people still teach that? Like glittering generalities and, getting an opinion of experts. And, I remember learning all these techniques they used in marketing and having to come up with my own campaign and using some of them. So that is something else that I'm looking for resources. I thought that'd be fun one month is to go through how commercials draw us in and what propaganda techniques are. So I don't know. I haven't seen that in a whole lot of curriculum. So maybe that's just, I can't imagine marketing's outdated. Anyway, yes, I will be talking at Brave Writer Summer Camp. You can look that up on the Brave Writer website. I will be speaking about using the arrow and boomerang guides in your homeschool. Oh, informal logic. Amy, shoot me what you used for informal logic. I have some informal logic stuff. I wonder if it's in there. Okay. Thank you. Vocabulary. Okay, I'll go get it. Other than reading, which I think does excellent vocabulary, we use, this is just reading lots of great books and copy work and discussing the words in the copy work. We use these, Marie's words. These are little cards that have graphically, pictures to help you memorize their SAT in general, vocabulary words. So I bought these this is what my kids used for Pokemon cards. And these fit perfectly in this 9-pocket sleeve. And we hang these on the pantry. And we change them up. If the word is facing us, probably this way, the kids probably knew the word. So they didn't need the definition. If the definition's facing, it means they actually needed the definition to be able to use it in a sentence. And then for the last 2 years, I have kept mints or hard candies around. And anyone who uses a word in a sentence can get a hard candy or a mint, a lifesaver. So my kids will come up with really hysterical sentences, sometimes using the word incorrectly, but hey, they're trying. Or, so I might say something to them and they would say, Mom, I refute that. And then I'll try to get them to give a little more so that I know they really understand the word, and then they go get a mint. So this has been really helpful. I don't know how cheap they are. I feel like they're $40 on Amazon. I wrote a whole blog post about how we use this. So if you go to my Not Before 7 blog, which is notbefore7.com, I wrote a whole post on Marie's words, and you can look up how we use them. I was fortunate enough to find them used. So, but honestly, I've been using them for 2 years this way. I've owned them for 3, and they've been well worth it. So even if you had to pay the $40, you're going to have them forever. Oh, and look at all these words. You're not going to go through them anytime soon. I mean, look at all these words. There's so many words. So you got plenty. And there's games you can play with these. I mean, you could do a lot more than I do with them. So I have a marker in there because I could pull out words we've done and maybe come up with some sort of game. I don't even know what. but it at least puts some good SAT language in front of them and they're trying to use it. So my complaint with vocabulary books, because we did Wordly Wise for years, and then I finally was like, this is so silly. Everyone's just filling out these worksheets with these words, but I don't think anyone's really learning them. They're just flipping back to the definite, putting them down. So I used to take the Wordly Wise words and I would pick somebody's book and I would print them up and I'd put them on the kitchen and we'd try to use them at dinner. Like, how many of these words could we use in a conversation? And so that's what gave me the idea. In fact, I should do that for dinner this year. We should do like something silly on Friday night and see who can use, we try to come up with sentences with like as many words as we can. Sometimes they're really ridiculous, but remember the words. All right, so that is what I do for vocabulary. So I guess I didn't even think about sharing that because that one's kind of been standard for a while. So thank you for asking that. That was a great question. And because I'm here, I can find you a blog post about it because I'm on my laptop. Of course, it's taking a little while because my internet's like, what are you doing? You have a live video going and you're trying to search? No, here it is. Okay. All right, everybody. I think that's everything. Everything we talked about here is linked up in the description. So hitting up those links is lovely if you're going to purchase something from Amazon. So go for it. And you can feel free to email me any questions or leave comments, and I'd be happy to answer them. But that's it. And I think now I'm going to actually go and dive in to all of this and really focus today. My goal is to finish the minimalist homeschool, the major subjects, and the goals for each child in those subjects for the fall. And I'm going to have to print out a lot more worksheets here because I'm the type of person I want to then kind of take some notes for winter and spring, because I feel like, well, if I'm not doing it in the fall, I want to know it's coming. So I'm probably going to need to fill out 3 of those for each kid for the whole year. And then, of course, we'll fill them out in pencil. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. And you are all welcome. I love coming in here and chatting. You guys are so much fun, and I learned so much, too. And I will see a bunch of you over in Chantel's Facebook group. Come join us.